The year is 1942. Europe is burning. Balances are shifting every moment in North Africa, and millions of soldiers are being buried in the soil on the Eastern Front. The war had now engulfed the entire world, yet the winner of this war was still not known. The balance of powers on a knives of power was on a knife's edge. Every step taken, every mistake made, could change the course of the entire war. In such a world, Turkey had not entered the war. It was neutral. But was being neutral the same as staying away from the fire? On the 15th of March, 1942, this question would find its answer. Today, we examine one of the events that even in our own country, most people do not know. And those who do know have not been able to reach a clear conclusion about. In the middle of the Second World War, how did Turkey, a neutral state, come face to face with the fire of war? The 14th of March was an ordinary day for the people living in Milas, Mula. Yes, there was always a sense of war-related anxiety. Bombs were exploding in areas visible, even to the naked eye. Lands were changing hands, but Turkey was neutral. Moreover, it was managing the process well with both sides, or at least that is what the public believed. In reality, both Germany and Britain were making many attempts to draw Turkey to their side. As the war reached its most critical point, these sweet approaches began to be replaced by threats, especially Turkey's sale of chromium to Germany, and the use of this chromium in the German war industry was causing Turkey serious trouble. Britain also had certain demands. One of them was the request for airspace. For example, over Milas, on the night connecting the 14th of March to the 15th of March at 0:55, first the sound of aircraft engines was heard. Immediately afterward, the night turned into daylight, and in that moment 3 warplanes began raining bombs on Milas. Bombs were also dropped on the Esentep area, around the ammunition depot. The people of Milas, awakened from their sleep, were convinced that the country had entered the war. The bombs damaged more than 20 houses. Many homes were engulfed in flames. Durmuş Işıldak, who was guarding the ammunition depot, lost his life. His pregnant wife was injured. The aircraft, just as the Italians had done during the occupation of Milas on the 16th of May 1919, came from the Gülük direction, opened fire with machine guns, and dropped bombs over Milas. Some of the bombs did not explode, probably because they fell into newly plowed fields. The people of Milas spent the night without sleep. When morning came, they gathered in the squares to hear an explanation. The incident was immediately reported to Ankara. An investigation was launched, and officials were sent to the region. The initial assumption was that the Germans had carried out the bombardment. The local population stated that the aircraft were German planes. Commando Colonel Mirat Erdöl, who served in Gülük from 1939 until the end of the Second World War, stated that 1 week before the bombardment, his Greek sailor friend told him, "They will bomb this place within a week," and he described the day of the bombardment with the following words. "Kosto said to me, 'Look, they will definitely bomb you, that is Milas, within this week. But I do not know which day or who will carry it out. We took some precautions, but the bombing did not happen.' Some time passed. On the night the bombing took place, 3 German planes first strafed Gülük with machine gun fire and then immediately proceeded to Milas and began bombing it. Coincidentally, I was on duty that night. Despite the blackout, the bombs, to some extent, found their targets. Now you may ask, how did you know in the darkness of night that this was a German aircraft? Yes, we had not yet entered the war, but we were operating within it. And by then we could understand from the sound of their engines whether the aircraft flying over us was Turkish, British, or German. I immediately ran to the telephone to warn Milas, but what was going to happen there had already happened. Because the distance was very short, it was a matter of moments for the aircraft. But strangely enough, the next morning, when I collected the empty shell casings scattered on the ground from the machine gun fire in Gülük, I saw inscriptions starting with the letter W on their bases. These were English writings. The unexploded bombs in Milas bore the same markings. So it turned out that we had been bombed by our friend and ally. German authorities stated that they had no involvement in the bombing and claimed that it had been carried out by the British. The delegation sent to the region also reported that the shells were British. So why did eyewitnesses claim they had seen German aircraft? When the incident was reported to Britain, the Royal Air Force denied the claim. According to them, the bombardment had been carried out either by the Italians or by German pilots disguised as British, because the Germans had done this before in the Middle East. The Royal Air Force also traced the routes of their aircraft on the night of the bombing and announced that none of their planes had approached Milas. However, the unexploded bombs were British bombs. In that case, either the Germans had hijacked British aircraft and bombed Milas to provoke Turkey into war against Britain, or, as eyewitnesses claimed, the aircraft were German planes that had been captured by the British. The bombing had been carried out so that Turks would say, "German planes bombed us." After the incident, President İsmet İnönü made the following statement in Izmir: "We will try to stay out of the war. If it is not possible to avoid it, we will pay our duty to the homeland with honor and dignity. We have no issue that requires conflict with the belligerents." However, the state of mobilization will not change, and the country will always keep its armies standing and ready. We will emerge from the war as a vigorous nation. The key is for the nation to remain internally prepared. In light of internal correspondence in Britain and new data, it became clear that the bombardment had been carried out by the British. Britain's ambassador to Ankara, Sir Hugh Hugesson, applied to the Turkish government and conveyed the British government's regrets over the incident. Accepting this meant that one question now remained in everyone's mind: why? The ambassador stated that the Royal Air Force was conducting an operation against Rhodes, and due to bad weather conditions, the route had been mistaken, and Milas was bombed instead of Rhodes. The distance between Rhodes and Milas was 100 kilometers, and moreover, initial reports had stated that British aircraft had not reached Milas, or had Britain accepted responsibility in order to prevent a possible Turkish-German rapprochement during a moment of crisis. Because, while presenting its regrets to the government, the ambassador also guaranteed compensation for the damages caused by the bombing. The press showed great interest in the incident. The newspaper Cumhuriyet announced the news with the headline, "An attack on a Turkish city," while Anadolu reported it under the headline, "3 foreign aircraft bombarded Milas," stating that investigations were ongoing. 1 week later, Cumhuriyet published the following news: "The British ambassador informed our government that the bombing of Milas was carried out by British aircraft by mistake. Britain reiterates its regrets and desire to pay compensation. British authorities will work to prevent new incidents." The Times newspaper reported the incident as follows: "Bombardment of a Turkish town. Investigation by the British Embassy. On the 15th of March, the bombardment of the Turkish town of Milas by 3 aircraft of unknown nationality, resulting in the deaths of 2 people and some material damage, has caused concern here. Considering the British air attack on Rhodes on the same date, it is thought that some British bomber aircraft may have confused Milas with nearby Italian islands. The British Embassy is investigating the incident in coordination with Turkish authorities." 3 days later, the Times published the result of the investigation. British bombs falling on a Turkish town resulted from an error caused by bad weather conditions. The British ambassador in Ankara stated that the damage in the Turkish town of Milas was caused by British aircraft. The ambassador expressed the government's regret over this mistake and its desire to pay all necessary compensation. British authorities will do everything in their power to prevent a similar incident from occurring again. Milas was bombed on the same night during a joint British naval and air attack on the island of Rhodes. Reports from Ankara stated that 2 people had lost their lives in Milas and that some material damage had occurred. According to information conveyed by our foreign affairs personnel in Germany, the process was being closely followed there. If this incident caused Turkey to take a stance against Britain, it would be an unparalleled opportunity for the Germans. For this reason, news about the bombardment was amplified, and radio broadcasts were made on the subject. And Fuit, Kalking to L, in the following days the Turkish government sent a letter to Britain requesting compensation for the damage caused by the bombing. However, the British objected to the report's conclusions and appointed Sergeant Novis to investigate the incident. Although this was not welcomed by the Turkish side, Novis's report was awaited. After completing his investigation, Novis was brought to Izmir to the Turkish Air Force commander, General Celal Yakal. This must have been a precaution to prevent the submission of an incorrect report. Everything was already clear. Sergeant Novis told Celal Yakal that the bomb fragments and other components belonged to the British. He was then instructed to forward the report to the British ambassador, and Britain paid compensation, according to the findings, during the bombardment. 80 incendiary bombs, 3 40-kilogram bombs, 3 250-kilogram bombs were dropped. 4 of the large bombs did not explode. The costs of 25 buildings, electricity and water infrastructure, transportation, fire-damaged lands, and compensation to the family of the deceased guard Durmush were covered by Britain. With the compensation paid to the family, it was possible to build 20 houses in Turkey at that time. After that day, the region remained on edge. From time to time, blackout drills were carried out. After the incident was closed, Colonel Mirat Erdal explained the order he received as follows. From now on, any aircraft, even a Turkish one, if not previously notified, regardless of nationality, will be fired upon, and no foreigner will be allowed to land on our shores under the pretext of internment. If they insist, they will be driven away by fire. This incident was only one of the attempts to draw Turkey into the war. See you next week in another very important video. For now, stay well.